Can you speak to how you have your pastels laid out?
Yes, very intentionally, they are set up by hue, value, and saturation. And if you notice, there are no wrappers on the pastels. They are, and that's also very intentional because each pastel is a little tool that can act like a really wide variety of brushes. And if you've got the wrappers on, you've only got access to the ends, to the tips, and you've kind of defeated the purpose. So none of
What
them have the
brand,
wrappers.
what brand of pastels do you use?
Good question. They're all a very wide variety of brands. Each brand has particular characteristics that can be employed in a piece. So I would, there are some pastelists that like to stick with just one or two brands, but there's so many amazing pastels on the market right now that I just love them. So there are a lot of unison. There are Terry Ludwig. There are new pastels, Blue Earth, what else? Rhoads, I like very much, Mount Vision. So lots of different brands, and they all are just a little bit different. So, I just find that it really widens the breadth of, techniques and things that I can do by having a nice variety of brands.
Oh,
So, yeah.
I see a little heart, a white heart down in the purple. What is that?
Yeah. So Terry Ludwig, they're really amazing, and they make these as little gifts for not just special people, not just special friends, but every now and then when you order something, you'll get a little surprise in there, and so I just like the way it looks on the palette, so I put them in there.
Very nice.
So I don't really use them, but yeah, they're pretty. Okay, all right, so I'm going to get started. And can you guys put up? All right, good to go. All right, so the first thing that I like to do is I like to give myself a little bounding box, a little floating box here. And I prefer not to paint to the edge here. Some pastelists paint to the edge and frame in a particular way that works, but I like to frame my finished pastels with a matte still, and this floating box gives me a couple of things. For me, it tells me something about the picture plane and what's happening. It's easier for me to see the negative shapes within this rather than at the edge of the paper. The other thing it does is it gives me a little place to make practice marks. And to me, that's very, very important because I don't want to be putting product over product. I want to keep as thin as possible for as long as possible. So by testing out the strokes ahead of time, the color relationships, what the pastel is actually doing, just sort of mechanically, this little area gives that to me. And the other thing it does, if I need to adjust my composition just slightly, I have a little bit of wiggle room. And if I paint it to the edge, I'm kind of don't have that. Now today, my thumbnail is a rectangular proportion, and I'm preferring today to do a square. Now, I just like the squares. I think it's a really dynamic proportion to compose within. I also think that they look good as a finished piece, and they have a little bit of a kind of modern bent, and I'm not sure what that is about it, how I feel about that, but that's what I think. So I like
And what kind of paper are you using?
Yeah, thanks for reminding me. This is Pastel Matte, and I love this paper. It comes in a lot of beautiful colors. It's considered a multimedia paper, and it has a very, very smooth surface, and it grabs onto the pastels in a very particular manner, quite different than some of the other pastel papers, but I love it, and I've been using it. Oh gosh, we'd have to look. Can we?
All right.
Let me do that, but I'll swing back around to that. So I'm going to start in with just kind of a sketch, kind of wash in some of these shapes, and I'm going to make some adjustments to this from this thumbnail to the square proportion. So that's something to be aware of. Usually when I'm painting, say in plein air, I'm going to try to be pretty intentional and keep my final the same proportion as my thumbnail, so that I really really achieve what I wanted to achieve in the thumbnail in terms of composition. But in this case, I'm in the studio. I feel pretty confident about it, and so I'm going to go ahead and make a little change. So I'm just going to get in here and wash in some of these shapes real loose. And I'm concerned about a couple things, thinking about that I want my scene, I want my trees to be not static. It's a living, breathing scene. So I'm going to give it a little more gesture than perhaps sort of exaggerate that. But funny enough, I find that when I exaggerate it, it usually winds up being just about right. I think I'm exaggerating it, but usually it's just winds up just about right. So that's kind of funny. And as long as I have been painting, which is a long time, I've been teaching for 25 years now. It's crazy. So.
Implies when you're having fun.
Yeah, I know. And I feel so fortunate to, I've been doing this, I've never really had a real job. I've been a full-time painter pretty much my whole career. Started out as an illustrator. So.
Are you thinking at all about values yet?
I am a little bit. So just with this, washing this in, so I'm establishing a couple things. See this? This is my little fall tree in the light. So I'm leaving the paper here because I don't want to put light over dark here. I want to keep it as thin as I can. Here's my mountain shape in the distance. Kind of probably simplify this. Here is this tree here, and then I have this other angled plane here, and this is where that glow is that I'm going to try to catch, hopefully, and some other foliage, just keeping it loose and playful at this point. There's this sweep of this bank, and this is where that light is spilling into my scene. I'll just kind of get that sort of placed. Here's there's a little pine tree that's right here. And I'm going to put that in. It's kind of a little detail that maybe isn't necessary, but it's going to kind of frame my composition and act as a little stopper that I think will be somewhat effective, I hope. And so just get that in there like so. So that's kind of about all I need in terms of a beginning sketch. It's pretty loose and crazy. And at this point, it's really just a map for me. It doesn't have a lot of definition to it yet. But I like that about it. All right. So that's pretty good. So now what's next? That's always the thing. Where do you start? Well, I don't have a thing where I'm going to start from the top and work to the bottom, nor do I really think about, other than thinking I want to stay thin as I can for as long as I can, I am not considering or giving sort of precedent to hard to soft. That is a good train of thought to work hard pastels to soft ones. However, what I really am more concerned about is establishing the value and color relationships as quickly as I can So I can start to see the piece as a unified whole, or at least see my way into it as such as quickly as I can. So to that end, I'm going to pick out some things that are going to get me there. And I think I want to put some of that gold in for that tree, because then I can kind of key off of that a little bit. So I need to get something in. You got to start somewhere. So I'm going to start here. And it's nice and bright, and just get it in there. And that's that's kind of going to be the main focal point here. Now, next, I need something for that snow. Just a main, I'm thinking about just kind of a main wash, keeping it really simple at first, anticipating that I'm going to be adding on, that I'm going to be layering in more color to get that kind of optical mixing, but to start, keep it simple. So I'm thinking this, see that? It's pretty dark, but I think it's not bad. I think it's about right, at least to begin with. I want to make sure that this isn't too light. So just really, simple, kind of like a wash, kind of swiping it in, the big swiping stroke with the whole stick. But notice that I'm letting some of the paper pop through, because I'm going to come back over with some more layers. So at first, keeping it thin. And then there's this other back here, like so. So that's not bad. There's some of this. So I want to try to, what else can I do with this while I've got it in my hand? And I want to keep my palette also as limited as I can for as long as I can. This might be right for the snow up here on the mountains. Not quite sure yet. Don't know yet, but could be. So I'm just going to put it there just to remind myself that, okay, maybe. Next, I want to establish, I think, this. Now it's backlit. It's got that sun behind it. So maybe starting with something a little bit lighter. Maybe something like this. I love this. This is beautiful, kind of dulled green, but still it's got some chroma to it. So understanding that those three elements, aspects of color, hue, value, and saturation, are just that foundational knowledge is just key to getting all this going. I think that's pretty good. And now something a little darker. And notice that I'm not concerned about the sky yet. I'm going to knit the sky in and around these shapes. And I'll just come into this too, knowing that this isn't quite the right hue for this. I want a little bit more variety, but I think it is about the right value, so I'm going to err on the side of value almost always. Probably always. All right. I'm thinking about some of that. Yeah. That might be a little light. This is this light side of this foliage mass in the front of the pine. And again, keeping it really simple. I don't want to be doing individual leaves and branches and such at all. Not at this stage. And then that I think will work in there for that, maybe a little bit here. So now I'm kind of getting somewhere. And Let's see, what else do I want to do now? Okay, some of the edge of that pine tree. Yeah, that's the same as the other one. I want to shift it a little bit different hue. So get something more like that in here for this. Just to start, just to get a little something in here. Okay, now that I've got that there, it's, I think, a good time to start thinking about the sky and the snow that's in the light. And I have this, I have this one Terry Ludwig here it's got some sparkles on it. And I want to use this, but not yet. I think it would be fun to use. I'm going to try this one, though, in here. This one's got some sparkles, too.
So what is it, like glitter?
Yeah. Isn't that fun?
How fun.
I know. Yeah, that's super fun. Yeah, I think that's not, I want it to be a little more gestural. I think that's not bad. Now I want to tackle this up here. Gosh, what do I want to do up there? I'm going to get a little something for the bank here. Start carving out. So I kind of put down this wash, and now I can start carving into those layers and really establishing my shapes and getting it a little more together.
Hey, Marla, a little word for your crew. The camera over the pastel, the red battery is flashing. It needs to get some power. You're going to lose it.
The battery is flashing up there. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's good to have pairs of eyes. We do a lot of battery watching around here. It's crazy. All right. Yeah, that's kind of nice, starting to pull together. Right here, there's the corona, the refraction of the sun on the edge of this, so I would like to try to get that. I kind of got it a little bit, a suggestion of it in the thumbnail, and so it'd be fun to try to get it. So I'm going to come along with something like this right on this edge. Sometimes stuff like this can be kind of tricky. I mean, it can kind of come across in a painting as a little trite or whatnot, but so, you know, kind of want to be a little careful about it, but I think I might be able to pull it off.
If anybody can pull it off, you can pull it off. No pressure.
I don't know. Give it a try. It's worth trying, you know. And I always feel like, you know, if the thing with painting, well, with anything, I guess what I love about painting is it is this great analogy for life. If you don't take any chances, you're not going to get better. So you got to get in there and take a few chances every now and then. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm pressing kind of hard by now on that, which is a little counter to what I usually try to do, but also have limited time, so I try to make this happen. All right, and now I'm going to get in there with some sky color. The other thing I'm not a big fan of is blue sky, because blue sky, it's really easy to have the blue sky just kind of kill. If you get it too dark in value, it can kind of kill the value relationships and make everything a little too dark, because that Carlson's theory of angles, the sky is always the lightest value. So blue is tricky, so gotta be careful with it. So I'm gonna get some blue in there, because we've also got that snow and it's reflecting the blue sky, and we kind of want it. So yeah, that's kind of working. There's my mountain. These clouds, wispy, really beautiful. Gosh, it was gorgeous there. It's just amazing. So now I'm just making some marks, kind of playing around with the pastel, turning it on its edge. This is a Terry Ludwig. It's got a nice sharp edge, so I can get in there and make some interesting marks for the sky holes. And I don't want to pick around with that too much yet, because I've got other stuff to do. So I'll circle around, I'll circle back to it.
You're kind of blocking the
Okay.
camera with your head.
Yeah, is that better?
There we go.
And you're not supposed to blow like that. But also, do as I say, not as I do is always good. All right, I'm going to come in to the mountains now, I think. And I haven't decided. I think that blue is a little dark for the snow on the mountains. So I'm going to lighten that up a little bit.
Is it difficult to get the pastel to go over a darker color like that without it influencing it?
You mean, no,
Well,
not
like
really.
You're
Which-
putting a light over a dark, and will it pick up any of that dark, or will it cover it pretty
It'll pick it up a little bit, but Eric, I'm so thin still that it's okay. I can press and get it on there. If I had started out really thick, then no, then you're in trouble. And that's why it's really important to stay thin for as long as you can. Okay, now I kind of lost some of the darks in the mountains, but I'll come back to that. And I'm really liking that. All right. Yeah, my underpainting is so thin that this is no trouble. And I'll just knit that sky in around there. And the shape of this pine, I gotta fiddle with it a little bit, but for now, right now I'm just trying to get everything kind of established. And then later on in the process, I'm gonna refine the shapes. I'm gonna add on to the colors, get the more nuanced color relationships, some texture, a little bit more mark making, all that fun stuff. But just get going. I'm just trying to get the thing working as a whole as quickly as I can. Get it to come together. And sort of, not sort of, but to maintain that kind of loose orientation. All right. Now I'm just kind of deepening some of my darks in here because it feels like it's time to do that. And the other thing, I don't want to get stuck in one spot for too long, because even if I'm not finished, I'll kind of, with an area, I'll kind of bounce around a little bit because I really want to make sure that I'm getting the whole thing established. My little tree over here. So kind of getting in there, getting a shape, and then breaking it up again. So making it and then breaking it. Working the positive and negative shapes back and forth between positive and negative. Now, this mountain, I'm missing those rich blues on the mountain, and I want something maybe like this. I'm thinking it's... not quite it, but it's more along the lines of what I had in mind. Oh, that's not bad. Okay. A little bit more light on the edge of my trees here. So even if I don't have the hues exactly right, I'm okay with that. I'm really more interested in making sure I have the values in some kind of relationship that makes sense. Eric, how much more time do we have?
You have, let's see, we have about, about 10 minutes.
I'll make a little more headway.
Yeah, you're doing great.
Try to get some of these fun little details happening, even though I probably wouldn't do it yet. Let's see, what else would be fun to do? I'm just trying to, I always am just looking for the thing that's going to just kind of make me happy when I'm painting. What's going to be fun to do?
Put some snow on a branch.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah, no, it's true. It's like, oh yeah, or that little sparkly thing, you know, like that. I do this, Eric. I intentionally save stuff in a painting. Okay, I'm going to wait to do that because I know that's going to be really fun and it's going to pull it together. And so I'll kind of save things for myself. Like, yeah, I mean, that kind of stuff's really fun. All right. And pastel, it's such an interesting thing. We're picking, not mixing. I just got done doing a course on color that is got a lot of mixing in it because I have all these pastel people, and I think it's kind of easy to miss out on some of the understanding of color when you're never mixing.
We have a question. The question is, what do you do? Do you spray your final piece with a fixative or something, or do you just put it under glass?
It really depends on a couple of things. How much product do I really have on there? But usually, if it's going to go in a frame, I do I do spray it, and I use a fixative very thoughtfully, intentionally, because there's some bad ones out there, and it's very expensive actually, and so you have to do it pretty carefully. I have a YouTube video on how I spray because you kind of got to do it right.
I love the looseness.
Yeah, it's fun. It's you know, it's a balance of keeping it loose, but still saying the things that you want to say, making, you know, suggesting all the things you want to suggest, but so it's a dance for sure. Let's see.
Do you have a particular fixative you use? Somebody mentioned hairspray.
No. Hairspray, no. Hairspray is not archival, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, if you're just messing around, and then yeah, you know, hairspray might be something to head to. Certainly does something. But I use Krylon. Do we have a can of it somewhere? Krylon Fine Art Fixative. I used to use a product called Let's Go, but when I first started doing pastels, it was $9 a can, and now it's like almost 30. And so at one point or another, I started looking around at other alternatives, and here it is. Thank you, Kevin. It's this. Don't use Krylon Workable Fix. It's not the same product. It won't do the same thing. But even this, it has to be applied in a very particular manner to get the most effectiveness out of it. So I'm going to get a couple of these branches in just for fun, just so I can pull it together a little bit more. because I'm probably not going to have time to get this completely.
You got about 7 minutes.
All right.
All
Oh
right.
boy.
No
All
pressure.
right. Get cracking.
How often do you go out plein air sketching?
Well, as much as I can. Okay, I'm going to be, totally honest. I live in Oregon. It rains a lot.
Rain and pastel, not a good
Yeah,
mix.
no, not a good mix. And you know what? I do not like to be cold. That's why I can't believe I went to Fall Color Week and it was snowing. It's like, oh my God. There are some amazing locations right near me. I have a beautiful riverfront right near my home. So I like to go places that I'm familiar with and can return to. As I'm a big fan of repetitive painting, painting the same scene over and over and painting it in different lighting conditions. I think that it's a really rich way to work. And I also have to confess to liking to paint in oils, plein air, a little bit more than the pastels. So there's something about my oil painting rig that just, I don't know, there's something about, there's something so romantic about being out there with those oil paints. Just, I don't know.
Well, plus if you accidentally spill your pastels on the ground, you're in trouble.
Oh yeah, I know what you were going to say. Yeah, yeah, it's not a good look, and I'm sorry to say I've had some students lose their rigs. It's not fun, and it's also very expensive. So you could see this is starting to pull together kind of nice. Some of these little.
So do you recommend that artists try and use different mediums, different approaches? Because some people will say, hey, stick with pastel till you know it. Some people say, try oil, try watercolor, etc. What are your thoughts?
Well, you probably can guess what my thoughts are. I personally feel like every medium sort of informs another, and that there's learning, for instance, learning to mix in oil or acrylic is going to help you with your pastel work. It just is. I also find that you sort of, I don't know about you, Eric, but I kind of, having a little break from a medium is just, it makes me appreciate the other that I've sort of taken a break from. When I come back to it, I'm like, oh wow, this is what this is.
I was talking to a pretty well-known artist yesterday who said the exact same thing. He said he gets bored.
I get bored,
And
yeah.
he needs to get out and try something new and do
Yeah.
some things to mix it up to keep it fun.
Oh, that's it. It's totally it. This is not boring. I mean, we're not doing boring stuff here. This is really fun. But there's, like even the dustiness, the chalkiness of this. There's something to be said, like taking a little break from it, and like okay, and then coming back. What's interesting, so my tray here, it has a lid, and what I'll do is I'll put the lid on, and then I'll be working in acrylic. Put my I have a big glass palette, and so it's covered up sometimes for a couple of weeks at a time. And then when it's time to, go back to the pastel, and I open up that lid, it's like, whoa, yeah, that's what these are. It's like, it's so cool.
You do the same thing with certain paintings. You just have to get away from them for a while.
Yeah, yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. You need that distance, that perspective on things. So yeah, I think this is kind of coming out kind of nice. That's sort of working. I would want to work on just refining the shapes of some of these sky holes, maybe adjusting some of these values just a bit. But overall, it's not too shabby.
Well, I'll mention again that Marla has painting lessons with marla.com, and you can go in there and find online painting lessons and check it out.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, we work really hard. I teach live workshops all around the country, and some internationally. And so with this crazy, unpredictable time, I've put all my energies into the online lessons so that my students can have an experience all year round. And I do like it because rather than just working with students for 3 days and then see ya, I get to stay connected with my students year round and really get an in-depth experience. And it's really been something. And I have a very small yet effective and wonderful team. They're really committed. Everybody works so hard. But the thing that I just cannot even believe how lucky I am is every morning I wake up and know that it's going to be fun. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be hard. But we're all working towards the same thing, and there's no ego happening in our shop. It's just all we just all kind of work hard and love it. So it's really special.
Why don't you come back on camera and we'll say a quick goodbye.
All right. Great. All right.
Well, this has been fabulous.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Yeah.
Beautiful
Thank you
job.
so
Well,
much. Thank you so much for
People now
inviting
that you
me.
get a feel for just how big that tray of pastels really is.
Oh, yeah, it's really nice. And you know what? There are a lot of pastelists that have way more. A lot of my students that do, but this is about all I kind of need. And but I have, this kind of thing takes some time to accumulate and to cultivate.
You have to be pretty disciplined, though, to make sure you're getting them back in the right place.
There's a bit of that. I do. I try to get them back, at least kind of in the right vicinity. Keep them clean. That's other thing. Because if they're not clean and if they're not in the right place, to me, if you can't see them, you're not going to use them. Some of my students they'll come to a workshop and they'll have boxes and boxes, and if you don't have them in the box, if you don't have them laid out, you're not gonna use them. So yeah.
Well, this has been fabulous. Thank you so much for being on today. It's really a pleasure.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
We love what you do, and thank you for all your fabulous teaching.